All right, welcome back to part 4. We're doing this again.
Hello, we're back.
Heidi Luv, Unfiltered Rise. All
We
right.
are here. We don't give
We're
up. We don't give up. We're no
never.
quitters.
That's right. We
Oh
we
my
got to
gosh.
finish. Got to finish strong. Uh,
Yes.
Before we jump back into the slideshow and all the pictures that we were going over, I just found one little thing that I wanted to point out. Going back to when I was talking about Tom Harrison, who wrote that book, Visions of Glory.
Uh-huh.
I actually found this little thing because, well, so he had put out this letter because the church was mad at him. He got in trouble for his book, and he basically had to come out and say he wasn't going to speak on it publicly and write an apology letter so they wouldn't excommunicate him or something. Um,
Oh boy.
but he was still speaking publicly and making himself an authority figure. And I didn't go into the part about how he was connected to Tim Ballard. And I'm
Oh.
trying to remember what I saw that it was. They had some little side relationship. There's one of the little Mormon groups that does podcasting was talking about it, and now it's slipping my mind
Mormon
how they were.
stories. Is it Mormon stories or
Oh
Mormon
yeah.
Mormon
They did one
stories?
on it. There was a few of them, but Mormon Stories
Okay.
did one on it. Which I've talked about John Dehlin before, and I feel like he's
Oh
controlled
yeah.
disclosure because he dumbs
I
everything
can't
down and
tell.
focuses
I
on a lot of
cannot
weird
tell.
stuff.
Yeah, he's different. I don't know. I
Well, when he'll expose a lot of the stuff that's like basic level, like doctrine or financial stuff, but when it comes to like the SRA stuff, he won't touch it. And
he
I know
won't
he
touch
knows
it.
about it. And there's just some weird stuff going on with him. But so anyway, okay, so he there's something out on Mormon Stories, and they do go into the whole Visions of Glory. If you're a ex-Mormon and you ever read that book and you're interested in it, you can go watch that on there. And they talk about the connection between Tim Ballard and Tom Harrison. So it's interesting, but I just wanted to point this out because this was a conference that I went to. It was called A Time of Awakening.
Oh, okay.
It was they were calling it the Zion Conference, and a bunch of the people that my uh polyamorous cult leader Karen Prayer, the one
Oh
who was
boy.
like her female Joseph Smith, that was where I met
Oh
her, was at this.
no.
And I found this, and it was interesting because so the names of the people who rub shoulders in this group that I mentioned in one of the previous episodes is R. Stephen Marshall, David Warwick, Thomas G. Harrison, Karen Prayer, um, Deela Taylor, I think is how you say her name, Robert J. Norman, and Abraham Gileadi. And they've all written big books, and they were all at a lot of these conferences that I used to go to. So I just wanted to read about him because he's the one that I read that message from on Instagram from that woman who told me that he was essentially named by a lot of the victims that she gave
Oh,
therapy to.
okay. The
And
lady
so,
that was gonna sue, right?
yeah.
That
Mm-hmm.
lady. Okay.
Uh-huh. And he's the one that was my therapist, and he was the one who um wrote the book Visions of Glory. So I just want to read his bio here because it's interesting.
Okay.
Because with what she said, how she said that he was a reprogrammer essentially in the 90s, and that all of her clients named him, and that he's not a good guy. Um it says here Tom G. Harrison was trained in cognitive behavioral therapy, psychodynamic therapy, reality oriented therapy, and relationship therapy. He has taught at the University of Utah Medical School, graduate of social work, and law school. Whoa. Oh, he has taught. He's taught at law school. Okay. And at Brigham Young University's School of Law, mediation, and conflict resolution. He is co-author of Dealing with Dependency. Now I'm going to stop there for a second because now this is interesting. Okay, I'm just first going to say he's huge. I used to go see him in his office, and he's massive, tall guy.
Oh wow.
Easily could have the hybrid genetics, right? And he definitely has a lot of history and background, and with all of his near-death experiences, I don't even know if his book's real or he just made it up or whatever, but it can't be true because Jesus comes back with Joseph Smith in the second coming, in his book. But he has all of this training that would be perfect from a bloodline family to set you up to handle children, right? To handle, because he's a therapist for sexual abuse is essentially what he does. So his books that he's authored and then all of the schools that he's taught at puts him in a perfect position, to be a handler for children. And then his book titles are super interesting. So Dealing with Dependency, Real Intimacy. That's a book about sexual relationships and marriage. And he is really weird because he co-authored that with 2 women.
Oh.
And Those Who Offend My Little Ones. So what I've always found with people who do something like, you've got Tim Ballard, who I'm going to go ahead and say I believe he's trafficking children. I have said, the best way for them to hide is to write about or talk about or be involved with the opposite of what they're actually doing, like the exact opposite, right? So I was just reading this and it hit me, like, those who offend my little ones. And if he's involved in covering up and helping reprogram children who are claiming sex abuse, he sure has all of the exact training that he would need for that. And has written books on the opposite of all of those topics. So it says Harrison has spoken to many groups on the topic of human intimacy within relationships and has counseled over 3,000 survivors of sexual abuse. He has been in private practice as a mental health professional in Salt Lake City for 32 years. And the other thing that he just got, or that he's connected to, is there's these ladies, and I can't remember their name right now, but they were convicted of abuse. They found some neglected kids like in a cage at their house or something. I don't know if you've heard about that, but they're talking about it on a lot of the other Mormon channels. They were like Mormon therapists again. And he's been in a lot of therapies or like conventions and stuff with her, speaking by her side. And she just got sent to jail for like keeping kids in cages and neglect and crazy stuff. So he's just affiliated with some really weird people. Anyway, I thought that was super. This was in 2016 and I had this forever. Oh, real quick before I move on from this, that lady who I've mentioned this before, but Karen Prayer, the one who ran the little polyamorous cult, who's like a female Joseph Smith. She is this is what hit me in here when I realized she says right in here, she's in a secret society. She's a dame in the Sacred Medical Order of the Knights of Hope. That's a secret society.
That's weird.
I hadn't either, but if you go look it up, it's all these women in purple robes wearing these almost like wizard hats. It's like a medical secret society. So she's like a witch of a sort.
Purple's like super occulty too. Purple's like,
oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Anyway, so it's just some interest. I know a lot of people out there that are Mormons know who these people are, so I thought they'd be interested.
So she's never been stopped at all. She's still doing the same thing. That lady.
Well, I don't know, because she told me that I could have ruined her whole torn down her whole 10 years of getting group. That's why they kicked me out, because I was having dreams and visions about their little secrets. But as far as I know, she's not been active on social media or anything in a few years, and she hasn't been putting out videos like she was back then. So maybe, well, because like the video that I put out that's coming out tomorrow, like I talk a lot about them in that video as well. And that group, her spiritual husband, because she does like spiritual husbandry.
She does spiritual.
Well, and it's also not just straight, like they do same-sex stuff too in that group. So she has like a girlfriend too who she shares her boyfriend with. And what was I going to say about him? Now I forgot why I was going there with him. I forget. What did you ask me?
Like, is she still doing this now? This lady, is she still Mormon?
Oh, that's right. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if she's still having all the relationships, but I think she kind of went under the radar because I know what I was going to say. They sat in peyote with me, her boyfriend and girlfriend. She tried to come with David Hamblin. They all did it with me. And she tried to come too. And she was saying some really weird stuff. And I basically called her and told her she was uninvited and that this was basically I knew all the people really well at the time. I was, pretty close with David Hamblin and Dylan Kidder, who put on this peyote ceremony at the time. And she was still threatening me and just being really weird. She always used to say, "Don't make me your god," but then she would like make herself your god and like try to command and control her whole group in these really weird ways. And I just was really sensitive to her energy, and I can't remember all the details, but I was feeling a lot of weird stuff. So I told her I called her. I literally called her and told her she couldn't come. And so they came, and back then, they were still. That was a year after I got kicked out of the group, but I don't know. Her girlfriend's related to Oaks, the general authority.
Dallin
marriage. Her husband is like, I don't know if he's his uncle or his son, but they're very closely related. And so it's just more of those familiar connections that shows you that all these secrets are taught. They're not like it's not like somebody just made this up and decided to go and do this. It's
right. That's so weird. But they can't possibly be like in anymore. They would have excommunicated them, right? Or do they? Well,
that's the thing is they don't care because who was it that I was thinking about the other day that the church knows about what a lot of people are doing. They'll straight up go in and tell them, and they don't care. Certain people of a certain bloodline, they don't excommunicate them. It just depends on,
maybe that's why they haven't come after me yet. I keep waiting because I'm like, do me a favor, like it's easier, Nope, nothing. Still got the missionaries door knocking me. So they know where I am.
Well, maybe they have your little family's Nephilim hybrid genetics online. So they just leave
That's
you alone.
Why I'm like, oh no.
Which I also wanted to say, to you, because I heard when you were talking to Brennan, you were saying how I had said that you have the features, and then you were talking about another episode with some guys who'd pointed it out.
It was totally different guys. They didn't even know anything. I was like explaining to them.
Yeah. And they were like, you're explaining yourself.
Yeah. They were like, well, she's literally talking about her own self. Cause I was like, oh, because they started looking, there was like 3. It was like a forum. And they were like, and I was like, I know. They just looked at me
that's
weird.
So funny. You can't avoid it. But I just had to say, because it was so funny when I was listening to you, the way you said it, it made me feel bad, because I was like, I hope I didn't make her feel bad, because it's not a negative thing.
No. I know what it is. I mean, I know what they are. Like, even when I told the people that knew nothing, they knew nothing about, like, I'm educating them, and they have wide set eyes and not a very big bridge,
even coming from me.
Yeah.
Like coming from me, and because you were like, oh no, and because you're like, that's not a good thing. And so my point is just to say that, like, when Lucifer and his fallen, when they breed with humanity, they create some of the most beautiful humans on this earth. And you always say, when they see an angel, the first thing they say is, don't be afraid, because they're scary looking. I don't think they're I haven't seen them, but from everything I've heard, it's not that they're scary looking, it's that they're scary feeling, because there's so much power. Like, when I interviewed
some of those angels they were talking about with all the eyeballs, I was like thinking maybe one of those came down.
Phantom. Those are the ones usually. I
was like, see. Oh my gosh,
with the wheels, Ezekiel and all that. Yeah,
I was like, oh my gosh, could you imagine waking up and seeing that in your room?
Yeah, but those ones aren't breeding with people. That's not what's that's a different whole.
Those are
category.
Like God's guardian. I don't even think they ever leave God's area.
Yeah, it's more like a traveling. Right. It's in the book of Ezekiel. But anyway, my point is just that, like, when I interviewed Cody, he said that this being that he saw, because he saw essentially it was Angel Moroni, because it was Joseph Smith was worshiping this angel, or at least it was a symbol. I can't say for sure that it was, but what he explained sounded like it. And he said it was the most beautiful being he'd ever seen. And when people see Lucifer or other angels, I've listened to a lot of people who have come out of occultism who've interacted with these angels, and they say they're the most beautiful beings they've ever seen. They're scary, not because
not like
anything about the way they look. It's about the way they feel, because they have evil deeds up their sleeve and they have immense power and light. And so they come in with power. And so anyway, I just didn't want you to think anybody was saying you look scary or different or weird or anything like that, because it's all about beauty. They're so beautiful. Like another one of my friends who I know was involved in I used to sit and stare at her eyes and look at my eyes in the mirror and be like, how can you have such big eyes and I can have such small eyes? And it used to make me like, her eyes are beautiful, and you're not unique either, because you look like 90% of the Mormon population in Utah.
I know, just in Utah. If you travel outside of Utah, it's the weirdest. And my daughter called me a narcissist once, and it kind of really hurt my feelings. But I told her, more than once, she's my estranged daughter, but she looks exactly like me. If you've seen her and you I've shown pictures of her to other people and they're like, oh, that's you. I'm like, no, that's my kid, And the only difference is she has bluish green, like there's a little tiny yellow in the middle, but they're blue. And then I have green eyes. And so anyway, we were traveling. We went to France, we went to Italy, we went to New York. And I said to her one day, I said, you notice no matter how many places we travel, that actually we don't look like a lot of people. And she goes, that's weird. I think we don't. I think we look like everybody else. And I remember looking around, especially in France, and going, no, we don't. I was like, and there was beautiful. It wasn't about like not beautiful or beautiful. Like, I think she thought I was being like weirdly conceited, and the only thing that they kept saying to us in France was, you look like you're from Scandinavia or somewhere.
Oh,
like, that's weird. Like, cause I'm not, I mean, I am white, but like not that. I don't even barely have any of that in my DNA or anything. I'm Scottish and Welsh. And
right. And for people who get into the alien races and talk about like the Pleiadians and the Arcturians and the Nordics, who are all just fallen angels, play aliens, faking their, aliens, they disappear. Yes. They change their look a little bit and like, oh, we're from a spaceship from another planet. It's just the same fallen angels. But they have a group called the Nordics, and supposedly there's a lot of people like by what's that mountain where people go that's like really high? It's in California. I can't think of the name.
Right Shasta.
Yeah, Mount Shasta. Like a lot of people have said they've seen these beings, like that they live in the mountains and hiding
so much at Shasta. I've actually had a whole bunch of reports of that, not only from regular people, but my uncle, who was a Green Beret, that there's weird stuff at Mount Shasta. He wouldn't say. He just said, there is the weird stuff. Thing. He was like, there is weird stuff that come in and out of that mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Weird. And so the Nordics, if you go look up the alien races, the Nordics, which is just, again, the fallen angels, they look like a lot of the Mormon blondes kind of
how funny.
Looking big eyed. And so it's
you'll
just
never see more blondes and redheads.
Genetics.
Yeah, you'll never see more blondes and redheads than in Utah, and not just bleach either, but there is a lot of bleach, but it's more like
even in California,
golden blonde, like a sandy blonde or whatever.
But. Yeah, and in Arizona and Idaho too. I've never been in a ward that didn't have a full family that was all redheads, like a redhead married a redhead, and then all their kids had red hair. And they're always really fascinating. But
so true. Weird.
Anyway, so you're beautiful. Just want everybody to know and tell your husband I love him. I love his red hair.
Poor redheaded husband.
Body.
So funny. I know. I told him, I'm like, don't worry.
These things are sought after in those bloodlines. And so even if you have them, it's all it means is you have extra beauty, extra power, and we're bred for a certain purpose. And if you have a good heart, then good. Repent.
Hopefully it's all good. Yeah.
Family's iniquity. That's about all we're saying. Right. So. All right. So back to this. We've got this Jupiter tower. So we already looked at, well, what else is in these relics? So was there something else here you want to talk about?
So the Mars knife, we did the seer, those are the two seer stones, and they're just, he had two, but he preferred the dark one. And then he kind of stole that, just so people know, which is kind of actually funny that he came across it by literally. He kifed it because they were on another guy's property and his sister did seer stones. And so he knew what they were and they were digging a well. And he's like, oh, look at this stone that I found. And he's like, oh, can I see it? And he's like, yeah. And so Joseph takes it and he's like, did you see anything in it? And he's like, no. And he's like, well, we both know that should be mine. And he's like, yeah, but I don't know. And so he's like, well, you can borrow it. And he had it for years. And the guy was like, okay, I kind of want it back now. And he was like, yeah, no.
Sounds like a Mormon borrower.
So
if I ever left anything at my Mormon friends' houses, they just basically adopted it. Like, oh,
like, where'd my Jello? Where'd my Jello bowl go?
Is this my thing? And they're like, oh yeah, you left that here 5 years ago. And they never say, hey, you left your whatever here. They just use it for 5 years. Until
5 years. Yeah, that's so. And then you're like, ew, I don't want it now. Yeah. Like you keep it.
It's cracking me up that you just said kifed because my family, I've never heard anybody say that, but my family. So
that's so funny. Yeah. Mormonville, USA, right? Wait until we say, what, just kidding. And what's another one? Frick. I think I did say frick a minute ago.
Frickin'.
Because we're not supposed to say the F word. And I'm trying really hard, but
funny.
It's like one of my favorite words. I don't know. I was raised by truckers and bikers.
I know. I have that. So what?
Let's see.
This stuff is owned now by
a private collector. Well, I think the seer stones are actually owned by the church, and then the parchments. I don't know about the knife, but the parchments are owned by a private collector, and they won't say who. And they used to be owned by the RLDS. And then and I don't know where the talisman is now. I don't know who has that anymore. It's curious. I'm not sure, but man, I bet the parchments, I bet they tried. Here's my thought on it. Conspiracy thought. I bet they tried to sell them to the church and the church was like, nah, bro, because you want too much money, like pull the whole Hoffman deal. And then they were like, okay, I'm going to take pictures and put them all over the internet. And they were probably like, do it. Cause we'll just say,
or they just don't want them.
Yeah.
Or they don't want them because they know they point to all of the magic occult stuff. And they're like, oh yeah, you can have them RLDS because we,
they would want them to hide them. Yes. To put them in the vault. That's my guess. But that's
so this is where you've got down here. This is that symbol that it looks almost like a 24 kind of thing that we were looking at earlier. That's the Jupiter. And then it's also on the back here. You see it down here.
Yep.
And so do you know what do you know what any of these other symbols are?
So I am unsure about the back. I wanted to go through these with that other one that broke them all down, but I haven't done it yet, or the Enochian alphabet. But I know that the actual like sigil, the whole Jupiter talisman thing itself was to bring to be like charming and get what he wanted and all that stuff. Like, because I looked up what it meant, but that was just the Jupiter part. I'm not sure if this is I'm not even sure. I need to go.
So this is but is that the Enochian alphabet, or is that?
But that one on the bottom,
like Hebrew.
I'm not sure on this.
Yeah.
That bottom thing does look like that sigil for that angel, kind of almost. Remember that weird little one that was off to the side?
That's the one that we looked at that said the Jupiter. We read it.
I think so. Yeah. So yeah, weird. It's got way more on it than what they're trying to tell us. I know that much,
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I mean, there's these, what do you call them? Pentagrams all over them as well. That one's not very visible,
and there's one that looks like a straight up Baphomet head, kind of. Did you see that? Like that? Oh, in his cane. Oh,
on this one,
cane. One back. It's the first one in them, and they're like, keep going, like the very first one. I think it's one. That one. See, that look in the middle. Look at that looks like a Baphomet head, kind of. I think anyway, but that one's the worst one to try and see. You can't even hardly see it, But
this is crazy. I'd never seen this or heard of
when
this.
You said that story to me, and then I got on there and I was looking at the relics and I was like, oh my gosh, she just told me.
Yeah, the one about that was one of the things I wanted to talk about too. Yes, because I haven't explained what my dad taught me, why that was so confusing to me for so long. Because what my dad told me was that, and I don't know, maybe I did say this, but you remind me. So, that he said before the serpent, okay, he said in the Garden of Eden, the whole reason that Satan or Lucifer chose the serpent to go into to tempt Eve was because he knew that the serpent was a symbol of Jesus Christ. And so he said before the serpent was cursed, and before the serpent was a symbol of the devil, it was a symbol of Jesus Christ. And so he said that because the serpent is above all things, below all things, throughout all things, because the way it can travel. And because in the garden, and you can find this in ancient books, in the garden, it says this in not the Bible, but other, I can't think of specifically where I've heard it. I've heard it in several places though. The serpent, before it was cursed to crawl on its belly and eat dirt the rest of the days of its life, it had wings. It was like this with its head, like a dragon, and it had wings coming off the sides, right? And so that's why when it was cursed, it lost its wings. And there's another book I just recently read that says it lost its legs, and then now it had to crawl on the ground and eat dust. And so, if it was, Jesus, a symbol of Jesus Christ, then it would have been above all things, below all things, because he talked about how, Jesus would come and sacrifice, and he would ascend above all things, but he went down to hell to teach Sheol, whatever, he went down to before he ascended to the Father, and that he taught in spirit prison was what my dad would call it then. And that he's throughout all things because he's in all of us. And so I was always of the impression that that's why Moses put the serpent on the snake, because we were supposed to look to Christ Hill. Because my dad always told us that parable. That's why that serpent was on the post, because it was a symbol of Christ on the cross. And
he did that weird thing with it reminded me of that story when he didn't quite think he was very powerful yet, and God said, throw your cane on the ground, because he said, what do you have to show them? And he said, all I have is this cane, this staff. And he said, well, throw it on the ground and see what it can do. And then it turned into a snake, remember, for Pharaoh,
when he was before the Pharaoh, right?
Yep. So I think maybe that too, but it was obviously a sign of miracles, because God turned it into that. So,
well, look, I believed that for a long time because my dad taught me that. And so it made sense because there's that version of that
snake looks scary.
Story is also in the Book of Mormon.
That snake looks like a person. Look at its face.
It looks like an Anunnaki. It looks like an Anunnaki, like it has a long head in the back. But yeah, it looks more like a serpent human being than
I can see
snake itself.
Like the straight down looks like
I don't know if is it a cane? Does it maybe
is.
It hooks up like that. I thought it was just straight. So that's probably it arches and then it comes down on the face.
Yeah, the other side has like a hook. Weird, huh? I thought it was creepy.
That is weird. I can't believe that the fact that he had that and that it's kept in possession,
that they keep every little thing weird. Of his. Well, and that Emma also, like, creepily, and I'm sure this is somewhere too, who knows, unless she got buried with it, but she kept a lock of his hair and wore it till she died.
That's a witchcraft thing too.
Yep. Creepy.
This is where you got all of this, right? Is on Latter-day Illumination. This site. Yeah. So if people want to go look at the details,
there's way more. There's a lot more stuff. Yes. And I just put that in there about the circles, because remember how Lucy Maximus said they didn't stop doing treasure circles and all that. So, and if you look at the markings when they're doing the treasure circles, it's the same as those sigil things that they were
right.
So it was a rendition of like for folk magic of him, like specifically to the Smith family. Somebody had recreated it. So I can't say that it has any significance, but they said they recreated it from the neighbor's affidavit, which he said they did draw signs with a sword in the dirt, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's very detailed. Because it was a court, it was a court thing. It was a court document. It was a William Chase, I believe. I think that's
so. This is a recreation and drawing of one of their like witchcraft rituals where they're doing magic outside in a neighbor's car.
Yep. And that
Wow.
neighbor had paid them to go find money on his land. And that was when they slit that black sheep, or I think it was a sheep, but it was either sheep or goat. I don't want to be misquoted, with that knife. And then he explained all this stuff they did because they called him as a witness to that trial, which is funny that they even did a trial, because if you know anything about treasure digging and being called in for that, it actually was super rare, because it's kind of like jaywalking back in the day. They would only do it when people were clearly taking advantage of other people, which,
Right.
so yeah, obviously the
Interesting.
case. But yeah, they
Well, and
said,
I see that.
you can't take his word because he was against the Smiths. Yeah, because he had swindled them too. So, I mean,
wow, interesting. I see that tattoo with it usually has the lines in the center of it. That's just to put
yep.
outside. But I see that tattooed on people all the time, especially at Walmart. I don't know what's going on, but there's a lot of witches that work at Walmart because
you're like, what is going on with you people? Why am I here with all you occult people? This is so weird. This is how
this one is the best.
Yes. And it when you zoom out, it will say, they cannot deny it.
Oh.
This is Joseph Smith's Masonic apron used in his initiation rites. And it's in the possession of the community of Christ. So this is all real stuff. Like, we're not making this up.
Who's the community of Christ? Is that the RLDS?
I don't know how those people came upon it, but I bet somebody was like, I'll buy it. Look at how Masonic and creepy this is. And actually, my great grandma told me that back in the day, now she's gone a long time. So actually, yeah, my great grandma, she was like depression raised and everything. She told me the aprons used to look more like this, because she told me when I got my apron, she said, these aprons are stupid. We used to have good ones with stars and everything. And when I seen it, I'm like, I bet this is what she's talking. Like, I know this is a Freemason one, but I'm just saying, I bet it was more similar to this. You know,
they've dumbed everything down because people were getting the wiser. So,
yeah.
I want to break down the symbolism here, what I see in this, and I can't say that it's for sure, but it seems pretty obvious to me because you've got, the stars are fallen angels. The stars always symbolize angels or the gods or the Nephilim, and they're here coming down out of the sky. And you're all seeing eye. Oh, that's God. No, that's Lucifer. The one eye is Lucifer, and that eye is on top of, like, a lot of the witches that go into the kingdom of darkness. Like, they go under the sea and they travel outside of their body and they say that's on top of a pyramid, and it's a portal, and it actually looks like that on here. It looks like you could travel in. It's a doorway. It's a gateway, and you can go into it. See that eye?
Yeah.
That's how you get into this other kingdom. So
like another,
it's the
and
eye of Lucifer.
The two pillars, and the eye of Jupiter. I think they actually call it the eye of Jupiter because they say that eye and Jupiter is actually the devil. So,
they call it the eye of Horus too in Egyptian.
Eye of Horus.
Lots of things, but I'm just saying, according to Mormonism, because they refer to Lucifer so much.
Yeah.
And then here, I feel
pillars are the 11 again that I was telling you about. That 11.
And then this is a sword with a heart, and this is a sword with a book. And I feel like this is the sword, the angel that came down. Look, you've got the stars, so the angels, and a sword came down and commanded Joseph to live polygamy. So love. I feel like that's the heart, is polygamy.
And made a book.
And then you've got the sword and the book, and he probably, like, remember the toad that punched him and everything.
It came straight from
even the writing of that book. If you're in a covenant with angels, like, they're pretty commanding. And then you've got a ladder here, climbing your ladder to heaven. And then what's this little thing? You got this black
like
circle.
A bug. Or
I'm not
UFO
sure what that
or something. That looks weird.
I'm sure it's some little magic thing. Maybe it's Saturn. And then what's interesting is even these balls on here look like the New World Order grid.
Oh wow. The Freemason black and white checkered floor is very Freemasonic. It represents
the columns
duality.
Are interdimensional. Oh yeah, go ahead. Which the checker floor?
The checker floors represent duality, as above, so below. They always have checkered floors. If you notice in movies, like 90% of the time, you're going to see a checkered floor. It's really weird. It's really occulty.
Well, and what they say is the point of that isn't just light and dark, but they say the reason it's in a checker pattern is because what they say is everybody's light and dark and you can't separate the light from the dark. And that's the excuse why they say, well, we can do evil and good. That's why we have karma. That's why we balance our karma with, we can do evil deeds, but we just have to balance them with good deeds. And so this is just a big fat lie, that checkered
You're
floor.
like, yeah, no.
And I would just want to say
they're tools. Yeah.
Yeah. The columns. So my sister, who is trained by my mother in witchcraft and magic, whatever they call it, she was giving me a massage one night, and she was doing this on my head, and I was laying there and I almost started dozing off, and I saw these columns. And this is an interdimensional thing. They go through those pillars. It's dimensional travel. And so she was going inside of my head. That was why my sister was one of my helpers, because there was appointed incest amongst me and my younger sister when we were younger. And they do that on purpose because it creates a soul tie. And then she was able to access my mind through different things. And we were communicating recently because I was trying to get her some help and get her away from my family and send her off to an organization who helps people who have been through, SRA and stuff. So I set her up with an organization. And so I haven't talked to her for like 2 years, but we talked. She actually admitted, she said something about like how we were, because I'm always trying to cut her off and I haven't talked to her for years. And she talked about how we have this soul tie through this experience. And it was like very clear that she knew that was an intention and a purpose behind, why that happened. But so these pillars freaked me out because I saw those pillars and it was like she was coming in through them into my spiritual dimension in my mind.
And they are definitely a representation of Solomon's temple for the Freemasons too. They're the dual pillars are like it's a big thing. But I mean, this is his Freemason apron, so no surprise on that.
Right. And then when you go into the dimension of light and dark, you've got your Freemason Bible here on the altar that's on every altar, and it has the compass and the square on it. And so, your builders going back to Nimrod.
Yep. All the tools you need.
And then you've got these cubes, and the black cube is Satan. That's why I said that might even
and Saturn. It's Saturn too. Yeah, cube is also Saturn, so could be that. It's also usually I don't know for Freemasons. I just know for occult, stuff. But
yeah, it looks like somebody drew this, but you've got pentagrams all over it.
It's so weird.
And the dark. And then the craziest thing is that's a coffin.
Ew.
A coffin with a pentagram on it, and that's the death ritual. Like,
when they make them go up
and I believe that's a sign of the sacrifice.
They make they make that to initiate into the skull and bones, and I believe even possibly Freemasonry, they make them go underneath, and sometimes they bury them alive. Did you know?
Yeah, there is they do a death ritual where they put them in a coffin. To advance to a certain level.
Yeah. And then we go back to the 11s that, like I said before, they also represent 11. So, so weird. Yeah. I mean, we all know he was a Mason. Now it's a mess. That's a hot, but they didn't used to, this came out recently because, lately when I talk to people, they're like, well, of course he was a Freemason. I'm like, okay, listen. I've only been out like 12 years and this was not a thing. If that had come up back in the day, they'd have been like, no, he wasn't. They didn't tell the truth about that.
And we were all still so sleepy and nobody really understood what it meant and thought too deeply. Because I know there were checkpoints when my ex-husband used to ask me like, oh, well, Joseph was a Freemason? Because I bought some videos one time on like Porter Rockwell and stuff because we had gone to New York at Palmyra. And they were saying something about Freemasonry in the video, and he looks at me and he's like, oh yeah, what do you think that means? Who's a Freemason? He was asking me. When I look back, I realized the look all over his face. It was one of those checkpoints. He wanted to see if I knew what it was. He knew dang well because he's involved in all that, but he wanted to see if I knew. So that's how they've just kept it hush hush, but then, when people started figuring it out, now it's like the thing.
They had
So
to, I think it was one of those newspaper things. They just, because now if you go on YouTube, the Mormon church has like, so you heard that Joseph Smith was a Freemason, and there's a dumb little video. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Okay.
Well, duh, you wear the compass and the square in your garments. I mean,
Yeah,
everything's
yeah.
Freemasonry. It's all over the temple and stuff. So people have to, you
Yeah,
can't
I guess
deny
they
it.
had to come out with it. That was another seer stone he used sometimes, but it wasn't his favorite either. So the brown one. And again, the
And
Mars
that's
knife.
the same one that we talked
So
about. Yeah.
it's called the seal of Mars, but it's actually the Adonai, Scorpio, and intelligence of Mars. So there's three things, but it is a ceremonial knife. You would not use this for just anything. This is for animal or any kind of sacrifice. So,
But are you saying they didn't have to use the knife, that it was magic, or they actually use the knife?
They only use the knife for sacrifices. So they wouldn't use this like to go just cut whatever. It's just to kill animals or whatever they were sacrificing. Because sometimes I really feel like it's strange that he had so many kids and they all died. But his mom, everybody's like, well, it's the olden times, right? Okay. But if you go back before him, his mother had a lot of kids and all of them were fine and lived. So I get that they were chasing them around, but a lot of that didn't happen till later and the kids were like older. So I don't understand exactly why he had so many child deaths. It was weird.
Well, there's this witch that I was listening to out of Africa who's born again, saved. And she was talking about how when she used to be called into hospitals to go and sacrifice babies through witchcraft,
wow.
that one of the things that, because when you get initiated, depending on how they do it, which in Freemasonry, they do it through sodomy, you get like demons in your ears. You start receiving voices. And so they just start talking to you and you're told clearly what to do. And so that's where these people, that's the oath of silence. You don't have to talk because you're communicating now in the demonic realm, and all of these activations of gifts and abilities in senses that are supposed to be dormant have been activated through the Kundalini. And so now they can hear, and the voices that she would hear would tell her specifically what to go and tell the mother who had just given birth to this baby that's now dead. What the cause of death was, right? And so it's not like they have to make anything up. They have a higher, a lower, evil, fallen voice in their ear,
and
telling
them. So interesting that they just cover it up like, oh, they died. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I think there's more to that story. And then the weirder story was, the one about the twins is they had these twins and they lost them. And so this neighbor guy lost his wife and he was like, hey, you want my brand new babies? Here you go. And that's the girl he ended up sleeping with later. And they were brand new newborns. Like, that's so weird. Like I have raised children that were not mine, many children that were not mine. I have stepkids. I raised my cousins for a while. I've raised a lot of kids. I would never be like, oh, it's fine. Yeah, he's going to be my boyfriend now. Like, what? Ew, that's your kid forever. No matter how old they get, that's your kid,
Wait, you mean the one that he adopted and raised, he married?
Yes. No, yes, he said he spiritually married her and he got caught with her. And that was what caused the falling out between him and Oliver Cowdery and Martin Harris, or maybe they were separate, but one of the two, and caught him in the barn with her. And he was like, what you doing? Like, can't
Fanny?
be. I believe so. Yeah. And
she was the twin that he raised, his daughter?
Yes, I believe so.
Oh, yeah. I never. Wow.
And so it was really sad because I don't think she chose. And think of her situation. She has no parents. She's living there with them her whole life. And this dad figure, the only person she has in the world, says it's fine because, this and this or whatever crap he told her. And then like she ended up pregnant and, she got thrown down the stairs. They said that she tripped, but there were many accounts that Emma beat her ass.
Yeah.
And threw her out of the house. And I'm just saying, like, Emma, I get it, girl. Like, that would piss me. I wouldn't kill a baby. I wouldn't kill a baby, but man, that would tick me off, you know?
Well,
Yeah.
they said it was an accident. She threw her down the stairs. She wasn't trying to kill the baby. Was what? Was
Right.
what? So they actually talk about in that recording that I will post in the episode. And I don't know what I was going to say about it, but it is interesting, that
It's
whole
weird,
scenario.
huh?
Like,
I'm like, oh my gosh. That's just what
well, one
yeah.
thing, what he did say in that episode was that polygamy, from all the books that he read, obviously he said it was basically just really hard. I don't think anybody liked it. It was miserable for everyone involved. That's why, it's evil, satanic nonsense.
Well, and even King David mentions a lot about this, and he's like, bro, like if you look at the different people that have been involved in polygamy, they're all like, it's awful, don't do it. So I don't know why they didn't catch it, but it is what it is.
Well, I learned that the hard way. I
Picture.
didn't go too far into it, but just in studying it and thinking about it and cheating on my husband and considering open relationships, I was able to come to the understanding that it is a wicked thing, And honestly, I think if you're not doing it for a satanic Luciferian lie, the higher law, whatever, then it's just, honestly, you're miserable in your marriage and it's just lust, or it's like sex magic power. That's the only reason for it. It's not a freaking higher law, y'all. It's not. So
and this picture, I think, and this is just my conjecture, I feel like these buildings were already here. Like, look at the top of it. I think they just added those steeples, to be quite honest. And it just doesn't look like, I don't think I've ever seen them building from the bottom up. I don't think
it doesn't even look like they built the steeples. They put these on and they're under there, and it looks like they're clean. They usually clean the temple when they put the scaffolding around the temple to clean it. I've seen this very thing in live, like driving past the temple, because they every few years they close the temple to clean it because they have to take
closed
care of
right now. Yeah.
And that's actually where I got this picture from, is Mind Unveiled down here, and they have really interesting. I'm like, is that guy Mormon, or is he ex-Mormon? How does he know so much about the Mormons, the guy who does the Mind Unveiled? But that's where I got this image from, because I'll point out another thing, because I agree with you. And before we go too far into that, I want to say why we're even talking about that, because we're going to do another episode coming up soon on the orphan trains and the Cabbage Patch and
old world. Tartaria type old world. Because I think the reason why he came here and said, because think about it, why would he come here and settle with a damn big salt lake? You can't even get fresh water. You're in this area that's like a horrible climate. Like sometimes it's too hot, and then it's too cold, and then it's not a temperate area for pioneers. And then so I'm like, I think he came here and saw this building and was like, that looks like what I'm looking for. That's my opinion.
And this is clearly early winter, because all the trees here have no leaves on them, right? And all of these trees, that you can see them all around the building and the sidewalk. And this is supposedly the picture of them building it, and I agree with you, because it doesn't look like a construction site at all. And it doesn't look like they've had to clean anything up. It doesn't look like they just planted trees. It looks like these are trees that have been around there growing, and they found this place established already.
Well, and they built them the crappiest shanties ever. And then yet they built this beautiful thing. Like it's kind of
and they have no pictures of it any earlier. They don't have any partially erected photos of it. They only have this full photo erected of it. They don't have any. They have a scene of where the quarry stone is supposedly being cut, but it certainly doesn't. None of the stone looks like.
And how did they get it here?
Turn into a building like this? It doesn't make any sense. And so what we'll go into in the episodes in the future is the old world, and what they've called the World Fair, which really clearly seems to just be the old world they found when they came.
Even
they just tore it all down.
Even the sky in this one, you can see that they messed with it, like that vanilla sky, that they call it vanilla sky, because they erase everything. See how sloppy this is right here in this corner to the upper, so left side. If you, yep, right there, zoom in on that. Look at how it looks photoshopped. Like if you look at this weird lines. It's just
well, and it's hard to tell because this picture's torn too. It has a tear in it. They must have found this. I can't tell if that's actually in a broken piece of glass.
Oh, true.
It's
Could
taken.
be.
This is torn. But I mean, it's definitely looks completed and found, and it's black and white. But it doesn't look new. It looks ancient.
Yeah, and I always thought that about the Salt Lake Temple, because if you look at the St. George Temple, which was actually finished first, the Salt Lake Temple was not finished first. The Salt Lake Temple is dingy looking, whereas and they're like, well, back in the day, I'm like, no, because the St. George Temple is brightest white you can get, and that's with red. They had red rock to deal with. So I just think, I don't know.
Well, and so let's just look at this, because I have a picture of some another temple too to compare it to. But like, this looks like a face. You see that? This looks almost like Egyptian, how they.
Oh, I see it. Oh, that's weird.
Faces,
I didn't see it at first.
Like a head.
Yeah, I see that now.
And then
he put holiness to the Lord on there, like he had on that weird parchment as well.
Yeah. Yep. And you've got this gold, or I'm sorry, the pentagrams, and there's the all-seeing eye one is right here. You can't really see it very good if I zoom in, but that's where the
I see it. Yeah,
show up in pictures later. But you've also got, even back then, I think it was the ancient gods that they learned all these phallic symbols from, because the Nephilim are obsessed with their own. They like the phallus, and they definitely show it in their buildings.
All their stuff.
The Freemasons and the builders always put the phallic symbols and everything, obviously. But yeah, this definitely. Well, and then these spires they used as energy to conduct, to have some kind of technology. And this is on only a bunch of the old ancient buildings, and it was
like for frequency healing. It was, yeah. And the
this
Moroni
is obviously
thing too is weird, because I mean, if you go back, there's that Nephilim they talked about in the one episode that always has a trumpet. I wanted to find the name of it, but I couldn't find it. And he talks about it that in that dream, how he had the mouth member of a horn.
Yeah, Cody, when the angel, when he called for backup, he said it was like how it talks about when God's talking to Lucifer in the Bible, and he's saying, I built you with all of these instruments within you. And he had all of the instruments inside of himself to make beautiful music. And he said, this angel Moroni, it was like he explained it like an instrument, like a vibration coming from his chest. And he said it was the most beautiful sound he'd ever heard. And so, yeah, they definitely have these musical things going on. And so a golden angel with a horn in its hand definitely sounds like, the fallen to me. Oh, wait, what? I thought I had another temple in here. Oh, let me go jump to this one. So this one is the Brigham City Temple. And I believe this is a more modern one. Do you know for sure? Yeah, I think this was built in. Hold on, let me look it up real quick, because I don't want to misspeak.
Right, have the wrong.
Brigham City Temple building. Date 2012. Yeah, so it's new. So yeah, because you see, I have videos of this actually on my Instagram of me live where you can see these better, but these are what's that flower called? Oh my goodness,
is it a lotus flower?
Lotus, thank you.
Okay.
It's these are lotus flowers up here, which is the symbol of the vagina in the occult. So you've got a vagina up here, and then you've got your phallus right here, And then you've got down below your balls. So you've got testicles, a penis, and a vagina right here.
Yep.
And this will tell you that this is a sex cult temple. They all have different stuff on them, and I think some of the different temples serve for different things. But if you look at the pieces and the construction on this and how it's just smooth, and these look more like engravings in something. I don't know exactly. I don't know a lot about building or the right terms to use, but let me just click back over to the other one real quick and show you the difference. You see how different that looks? Like they say they don't have the ability anymore to cut quarry stones like this, or the technology. Wow. And so this definitely looks like an ancient cathedral compared to these modern. Oh,
yep.
Switching over here. What's going on? The heck? Oh, okay. That there. You see how different that is?
Yeah, it's not even as detailed or like, but they'll lie and say, oh, it's because we don't want any more controversy or this or that. And I'm like, yeah, right. Yeah, look at all that. So
this is crazy because this looks like Jesus's hands are doing the Illuminati symbol that they do with their hands poking down.
Yeah, the diamond.
The Antichrist in there. And then they have babies up here, which is just kind of weird. And then this is like a seashell.
They're cherubim, I bet.
But cherubim aren't really babies. Like
no, but they represent like. But I wonder.
So they say, or because this is a shell, and the Marine Kingdom is one of the major kingdoms in the kingdom of darkness in the occult that people deal with. And if this has something to do with the Marine Kingdom and sacrifice, I don't know. It seems weird to me. It doesn't feel. It feels real weird, is what that feels like. And these details, like
it's so detailed. It is so detailed.
If it's old, I want to know how much of the inside of it was original too. It's crazy. I can't remember which one this was, but I just thought this was that's the celestial room where when you come out of the bell, walk into there. So this is the Seal of Melchizedek, is what they call it, and this is all over on the temple.
We got some notes about that.
Over. Yeah, I actually have some websites too that I pulled up. Well, let's talk about it first, and then we'll go to some other websites too. So this Seal of Melchizedek, to me, I'll just tell you right off, is that circle in the center is a rectum, and this is about the power of sodomy. And these brotherhoods, that's how they function, is off of their sodomy power with men against.
On that rampant, I thought this was really important because it says, yea, ye took up the tabernacle of Moloch and the star of your God Rampham, figures which ye made to worship them, and I will carry away beyond Babylon. Acts 7:43. Okay, so Moloch goes into our next picture, which when you went to the baptismal font, this always reminded me. Now, there's 12 of these oxen. It's supposed to represent the 12 tribes of Israel. And I always thought it was weird that if you look, it's the center that you go to. So back in the olden days, they had statues of Moloch where they would place their babies to be burned alive and put it in the belly of the beast. Well, if you think about this as a giant belly, and then the beasts are on the bottom, we're dunking these kids, because it's usually children that go between the ages of 12 and 16. I mean, adults can, but I've never seen an adult do it. It's always kids. And it's baptizing for who? For dead people. So again, I think that goes right back to some Moloch worship. I just think there's a lot of gods represented here.
Well, absolutely. And not only that, but so if you look at this is another, is it hexagram?
Oh yeah, the hexagon.
that's what the shape of this is. And then you've got the circle in the center again. So it's
back
the
to
Seal
that
of Melchizedek with the rectum in the center. And in Mormonism, that's, one of their sacrificial, they start doing, not just Mormonism and Freemasonry. That's how they initiate the Kundalini into the infant when the bloodline is through, they start with fingers and diaper changes and, from childhood. And so to me, you're just getting baptized right here into a big, huge butthole into the belly of the beast.
And then on top of it, it says
for a dead person under necromancy, getting connected to demons.
Well, and then on top of it, the Star of Ramphan was the representative of Saturn. So you throw Saturn worship in there too, which is again going right back to medieval pagan god worship. That's just so blatant. I think the Salt Lake Temple is really a treasure trove of blatancy because it's old and they're not going to tear it down. So we get to see all these old things that they can't erase, like the new ones. I think they're a lot more careful now, in my opinion.
And you got a lot of really pasty Jesuses and biblical characters there.
I always tell my daughter, Jesus wasn't white. It's the funniest thing ever. And she tells people at school, but they're like, no, he had blonde hair. I'm like, he didn't. Promise.
So this image came through really crappy, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But it's the my brain is not working today.
All the
pentagram and the moons and all of these moon phases or witchcraft and occult stuff. And then you've got your Masonic handshake and your beehive. And the beehive is about the hive mind, being of one mind. And being of one mind is really to be controlled, to be under mind control.
Yep.
And your angel, I mean, it's all, that just seems like a big fat absolute building built by.
And the funny thing is in the beehive that they represent, that they always show that weird, like the regular, when you think of a beehive, those beehives are actually terrible for the bees. And after they harness the honey, they all die. Just so all their workers, get killed because of the way it's shaped and everything. It just doesn't work. So creepy.
Interesting.
Sunstones, moonstones, stars. Yeah.
These ones are straight up upside down. They usually try to, in the temples or stuff
Nauvoo.
They build now, they're usually pointing up. But even the Nauvoo temple, they've said, the one that got torn down supposedly. I don't know if that's even true, but it's so hard because they've rewritten so much history. I don't believe anything that the church has said anymore about their buildings and stuff. They're before we were alive. But
astrology and the moon phases and the sun and even the layout of the Salt Lake Temple. It's laid out so that it has the moon phases traveling around, and every month is accounted for. It's really weird astrology stuff.
Yeah. Yep. And that's the sun god Ra, and right there. That's weird.
Definitely.
I can't remember which temple this is off of, but it's flipping weird too. The weirdest face of Jesus. And this is one of the newer temples. Yeah.
Oh boy.
And it's not a good. This isn't one of the ancient ones. You can kind of tell they tried to do something real weird here, and it's just really weird with the Indians and stuff. And another pentagram right there, and your sun rays coming out of the back. Your Ra. All right. So this is which room is that?
This is the one where you go in to actually this is the representative of the Garden of Eden. So I'm assuming terrestrial. And then this is where we used to have the actors, and I don't know what they do anymore, or the movie, but anyway, I guess they're changing.
They're doing a slideshow now. Slideshow now.
So weird.
Oh, this is where they just have actors where.
Yep. This is under the banner of heaven.
Because in the Salt Lake City Temple, they never had a movie. They do live.
They do live.
You just have people standing up there reading a script.
Yep. Yep. And so
Yeah, but
I
there's
don't
your
know
weird
what they
bets.
do. I don't even know if they do live anymore. I have no idea, but they used to do like theater. It's literally theater. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
this is the part that freaked me out the most when I was in the temple.
Oh
This,
God.
yes.
Hear the word
Yes.
mouth.
So
Oh
bad.
God. Hear the
And the book is in the middle and I'm like, what are they doing? And then now I'm like, don't let anybody put your name in
You
that
mean the
book.
bones?
Yeah, it's so
You mean the
creepy.
bones are in the middle, the finger bones? That's what
Probably.
DJ Norman says is on that altar in the
Ugh.
box is that it's not names. He says it's finger bones and it's magic.
Ew. That's so yucky.
And
They're
then
doing all
there's
their
them
little
doing
things.
the sure sign of the knell. They're doing the sure sign of the knell with each other in the circle, and then they have their arm up to the patriarchal grip and the sure
Mm-hmm.
sign of the knell. And that's the true order of prayer that they pray in. The true order of prayer that you pray in is through Masonic handshakes. Uh-huh. Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm. You can't get to heaven if you don't know those. So you can't forget them.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
That has
there
anything to
it
do
is.
with Jesus at all. I have. And
And you're
by the
able to,
way, our robes only cover one breast, which is also very similar to the OTO to have one breast exposed, even though they have a shirt on. I'm just saying.
well, and the
That's,
whole thing about the breast exposes to say I'm a man, so I can be a Mason because Masonry is only
mm-hmm.
for men. So it's interesting to go put it on a woman, but you move it from one side to the other as you ascend into another level. And I don't know if that's
I
the
can't
same in
remember. Yeah.
other secret societies, but it's definitely a similar thing. The exposed breast on one side, and yeah, like I said, that's the whole purpose is in the when the men go into their Freemason ritual and they put them with one pant leg pulled up and with a blindfold on, and the women have their faces veiled in this circle. You can't see it, but they tell them to veil their
Mm-hmm.
faces. So you put your blindfold on, and then you take the patriarchal grip, and then you put your shield with over your breast. Essentially, you're saying you're a man, and this just makes me think of some visions that I had this week where God was telling me I needed to renounce spiritual inversion because Brandon Kroll and I did a video called "The Inversion and Perversion of All Things," and it's about what we were talking about the change, that trans agenda,
Mm-hmm.
and it even the women being initiated into Freemasonry in here, there's some level of that inversion going on because they're doing this weird ritual that was only ever meant for men, and
Yep.
and so I was told I needed to renounce my own inversion in the spirit, and I've been writing prayers on that, which just is fascinating. I'll be releasing some more renunciations that I've been getting lately, but that'll be one of them.
Right.
And then this is the marriage. This is a marriage, and you get married in your same temple clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the altar. You kneel on each side of the altar, and then they have all the guests there. But usually, you can go in and do marriage for the dead, seal people for the dead. So you'll
That
either
was
do. We
like,
had the baptisms.
yep, that was the
We had
main
the
thing we did
baptisms.
after that because it was too creepy on the other thing.
Oh, I didn't do too many. My ex-husband, he never really would go to the temple with me. I spent he probably went with me a few times while we were married because he was always too busy working, supposedly. But he had his own Masonic stuff going on at work, so he didn't have any need to really want to go to the temple because he knew that, if you're living a cover life, there's not real value in going to the Mormon
Right.
temple, which is why a lot of these men don't go and the women go. But so you would do the baptisms for the dead, and then you would do that the one we just saw where they're in the circle. This one is where you're taking out your endowments and you're going through the veil and entering into the celestial room. And that one's for yourself, and the women and the men sit on a different side of the room in this part. And that's called initiatories. So when you go through this, you only do this for yourself once when you get your garments. And then every time you ever go back after that, they give you the name of a dead person. So in the Mormon temple, you're either going in and doing baptisms for the dead right here with dead names being read, necromancy, or you're going in and doing initiatories, which is initiations into Freemasonry. All hail Satan. That looks like what they're
right.
That's and crazy. Initiatories, or you're doing sealings, which is sealing dead people to other dead people who are already dead. And God says right in the Bible, in heaven, they neither marry nor or are given in marriage. And so nobody read the Bible when they created all of these rituals in the temple, right?
So weird.
You want to talk about these?
All of our little signs, but they have done away with the slashing of the throat. However, I do want to mention that New York Patriot, who used to be an OTO member, which is Ordo Templi Orientis, which is not satanic, but a Crowley type thing. He said they also do that, but we have done away with that. I think it was last done in the 1988, if I remember correctly. And then the rest of them, they still do. They were showing the both hands up. That was the one where they were chanting and doing it. And then these are the other seals and signs for the penalties and the Aaronic and Melchizedek priesthood. So you have to go through and know all this stuff, plus more handshakes for the veil.
Mm-hmm.
They have you do them at certain times in the temple. They'll tell you, but it always just seems so weird to me. Like, this is so confusing. Why are we doing this? What is happening? It just was so strange to me. But they used to really make a big deal about this one because it's like you'll cut your tongue out and slit your throat if you talk about it.
So
like
that penalty, the one they used to do was like this. Yeah. And so that was where they would say, if you tell these secrets, which is funny because they go, oh, it's not secret, it's sacred. It's like, really, if it's not secret, why you got to slit your throat if you tell,
Right.
And didn't they used to have one to be disemboweled too? Or is that only in Freemason?
They got rid of that too. Yep. No, they did. They got rid of that.
So that was another one of the penalties. And what's interesting about that is there are literal women who have come out and don't want anything. I know a lot of women who've come out of Freemason bloodlines and Mormon bloodlines who've literally gone to hospitals and been disemboweled. Like, I have a friend who they took her while she was under, without her permission, they took her uterus, and that's a disembowelment. Or people who get certain supposed illnesses of the gut, and then they go in and they take all of their guts out and leave them with a colostomy bag. These are how you do modern day disembowelments. Is a lot of these women that are walking around with colostomy bags and no uterus have been disemboweled because of the curses over their bloodline from these very things in the temple that are passed down to the third and the fourth generation. And so this is another reason you want to get on your renunciations and, do your prayers to get out of these things, because you don't want these curses to be passed down to your children, and you can't just sit around and not break them and just leave. Like, you need to go through the process of renouncing these things on your bloodline. Because these penalties that our parents or our parents' parents take in the temple that I took, that you took, even though they may have taken them out, they're still there because it's still Freemasonry. It's still part of the penalty that will come if you try to leave on your it's on your bloodline. So either way, it's just bad news. So there's some more weirdos doing there in there.
I think they were out. They were out, and I think making some fun of things. Definitely.
Oh yeah. Oh, and by the way, that hat, see the tassel on the man's, it's to the left side of the screen, his right side. That tassel, like I was saying, is the same. You move it to another side, just like they do in graduation. So again, white, like, this isn't a religion thing. This is a cult thing that they have signs and symbols of throughout society, not just in the temple. And then there you've got your compass and your square on the nipples. And we've talked about those in the past. You've got your ruler down here on the knee. These are the signs that those are your two nipples. And then that's what's on your knee on the garments that you wear. These are more the ones that we would wear. Oh, and on the belly button. I forgot about the belly button too. And so one thing that I haven't talked about in the past episode, I know we talked about how that symbolizes exactness, which is what points to the Antichrist, because it takes away from mercy and grace. But the other thing is that the compass and the square is the male and the female, and the spreading of the legs, and then the space in the center is a symbol of the womb or a portal. And so women are walking around with a compass and square, which is a sex symbol, as well as exactness on their nipples. And everything that you want to give for nurturing, that you should be able to give to your children and give to the world in the Mormon temple, is cursed to be given to, the church, either to the men, to the energies of nurturance that women carry, their stars and their lights and their destinies to nurture the world, which is what a woman's call and role is cursed by these symbols that they wear on their breasts. Sex. Yeah. Sex symbols. Sex is where they drain your energies.
And it was such a weird thing to have to wear them. And you have to cut the marks out. Like when they wear out, you have to cut those and burn them. So it's a whole big thing. They can't go on the floor all this stuff. It's wild.
It's just another sign of, it's just another sex magic symbol is what it is. Those, putting that on your nipples, that there's always some kind of sigil magic that's happening that you don't understand behind it.
That's for sure. Most people do not. I didn't.
Yeah. Right.
Here's the handshake.
There's a couple more. Yeah, I think everybody's probably pretty familiar with those, but
yeah, should be by now.
All right, so then now let's go over and take a look at a couple of these videos that are really interesting from the temple ceremony.
Trauma ensues. No, just kidding.
Is it up? Can you see my screen now?
There's a video.
All right. So let's just check it out and see what we got here. I'll pause it and talk as we go. But so this is where this is a commentary, and these guys are talking about it, so you might hear them talking too. But this is the part where Satan is coming to, or I think they call him Lucifer, same difference, whatever, is coming to tempt Adam and Eve again after they've been kicked out of the garden. So, and I always thought it was so weird that they refer to him as a serpent and everything, but that even though they make this movie so crappy, that they never actually made him be a serpent. I was like, he's a serpent. Talk to him. Why do you have him as a man?
It would be too funny to have him in a snake suit.
Right. Okay.
Oh, goodness.
Wait, hold on. So that's where he says if these people in this temple this day don't live up to these covenants, they'll be in my power. And they've made so many versions. Some of them are a lot creepier. Wow. I like the older ones better. They were funny. Like he would be like, they will be under, and he would be talking to them, and then he would turn around and like look at the audience.
And he had a
so
cape
dramatic
thing.
Yeah. Yeah, they made it, and he would whip his cape around. Yeah, they made it less dramatic now, but I can't remember if there's something else coming. Hold on.
Boom. That's it. That's the one.
Yeah, so this is where they're kicking him out. This is Peter, James, and John, who came into the Garden of Eden to bring messages as messengers to Adam and Eve, which is nowhere to be found in anything that's ever been written. But he does the square. Mm-hmm. So in order to cast out Jesus, you have to make a Masonic square. That's why this is just silly, right?
It's so much stuff. They have so many things. It's wild.
So many things. They're one-uppers.
So much.
You can't just cast out Jesus without a square on your arm. You have to one-up. You have to do the square too.
Make a dramatic movie.
So that's where they essentially tell you that that's what Mormonism is its philosophies of men mingled with scripture.
him to believe what is being taught.
So you can't tell because supposedly it's supposed to be a secret, but he just reached over to shake his hand. You know, he said good morning, and then he reached over to shake his hand, which he would have been giving him one of his signs to let him know who he is, because what the Mormons teach is that essentially, yeah, when you go to get into heaven, you're going to have to present these certain handshakes and know the secret names and tokens in order to get in the temple. So for Adam to be able to recognize him, he just offered his hand, and now he's going to go further with it. So and it's also interesting because he's looking for messengers for his father to teach you, which teaches people that they should look for angels, which is angel worship, because we're supposed to see either nobody comes to the Father save it be through the Son, or now we have the gift of the Holy Ghost, but he's seeking messengers, which the word angels means messenger. So that's another weird little Antichrist, like not doctrinally sound with the Bible things that's going on there. Is he's looking for that, you know, angel worship. So hold on. Yeah, so that's where he asked for tokens or a sign.
And money.
I thought that was so weird. I was like, did they have money when they left the Garden of Eden? Like, why is he asking for money? Isn't that so odd?
Tithing. It's time for your tithing.
Like how it's so weird. There's nothing like that in the book of Genesis. They just left the Garden of Eden and got kicked out. And all of a sudden we're looking for money. Like, it's just weird.
He's trying to see if he'll sell them. Of course, Eva's blonde. I think the whitest people ever.
That's another thing that was so interesting is in the temple, it was always Lucifer. It's always him. Like, there's Jehovah doesn't speak. If you go and you look at the manuscript for the temple ceremonies, there's like 90 sentences from Lucifer, and there's like 12 or something from Jehovah. Anyway, so this is interesting. We were talking about the Seal of Melchizedek, and I found it on some other weird websites. You got the red square in the center or circle. And let's see, this one talks about how it symbolizes new beginnings, fullness, regeneration, numerical order, right speech, right action, right view, right resolve, right livelihood, which, you know, again, this isn't like biblical. This is just like occultic right living, which falls more into line with compass and square exactness kind of stuff, you know. And
also the 8-pointed star is the star of the Anunnaki. So in ancient mythology, the 8-pointed star represents the god of the heavens, who was called Anu.
Oh, really?
Oh, that's
I
what
have
it
this
says.
page that shows a whole bunch of stuff, but I didn't see that one on here. There's a lot of stuff on this one. Yeah, I mean, it symbolizes a lot of stuff, but none of it's like good, and it's all over the temple. Oh, here, let's see. Here it is. Let me show you this one first because it's all over the San Diego temple, and the one that I used to go to in Newport Beach, it's all over that too. You can see it up here.
Oh, yep.
This says it appears over 10,000 times in the
Wow.
San Diego temple. And I actually, oh yeah, at the San Diego temple, if you look at it from above, it's actually that shape. Like it's a the what do you call it again?
The rampan,
the seal of Melchizedek. That if on the aerial view it sits like that, like this.
Yep.
That's the shape of. I also think it's interesting. I mean, I know that's a proper word, erected, but I think it's really funny that these phallic people use the word erect
instead of just like whatever else they get completed.
Just put the day or built on or like erected. We're erect.
Well, that one has a lot of phalluses, so that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, this one is very majestic. And even though, I mean, yeah, you see how different it is because these are fluid. It doesn't have all of the stones like the other one did, like the Salt Lake City temple. And I drive past this one often, and I always feel like it's that castle on the Never Ending Story because it's just so like crazy looking. It's on their fence posts. The fence
really
posts
got crazy on that
Brigham
one.
City. Yeah. The fence posts in Brigham City look like vaginas. And then again, there's the beehive in the center of it. And what happens when with the sodomy rituals? The hive mind. You get connected to the demonic, and it's right in there in the center of the rectum on these temple buildings. This is, it appeared in ancient buildings too. This is an ancient temple. Let's see. I'm not going to spend too much time on that one. Okay, coming back here. So this is where, the Mormon explanation is going to tell you their own. They say it represents Jesus. That doesn't come from anywhere. They just like make that up, right? Russell M. Nelson. He says each temple is a house of learning. There we are taught in the master's way. Who's your master? His way differs from the model or from the modes of others. His way is ancient and rich with symbolism. It's really not like Jesus spoke in parables, but Jesus also taught a very plain gospel. It wasn't rich with symbolism. We can learn much by pondering the reality for which each symbol stands. And, parables and symbolism are different. This is occult symbolism. It doesn't line up with what he says there. So, anyway, if you go through here, this one was interesting. Remember how we talked about Quetzalcoatl earlier with America? The plumed serpent. The Mayan symbol, this symbol in the Mayan way is who believed is to represent a Venus deity. Since the Venus glyph appears where his face is, notice the cross symbols on the skyband. When the cross in the skyband are superimposed, an 8-pointed cross is formed. So they have, we know that's what it's called, the cross of Quetzalcoatl, which is the plumed serpent, and which would be the Kundalini energy inside of the rectum for the sodomy ritual. And so that's, when you come to these symbols, and we know that this religion, and you look at their temples and what's on there, and it's passed down through Nephilim, then all of this symbolism takes on a completely different meaning. So anyway, this website's really interesting. It has a lot of different. The Sumerians used an arrangement of lines as a symbol for both star and god. The linear 8-pointed star represented the goddess Iana, the Sumerian queen of the heavens, and Ishtar, the Babylonian goddess known as the light bringer. An 8-pointed star enclosed with a circle in it was the symbol for the sun god, Ra. The Babylonian star cult is the core and the archetype of subsequent astrology. Anyway, that's an interesting website. You can look into that if you're interested. But what else you got?
I think we have covered it unless we have any more slides. I think we are there. And I think, did we catch all the points? We get them all?
Yeah, we finished got through all of it.
Cool.
Yeah. So next time you and I get together, we're going to talk about, like we said, these orphan trains, and you guys should really look into
important.
Because
yeah,
because I just feel like it's a whole other piece of the puzzle when we talk about you have Genesis 6, which is the beginning, and the Nephilim and the first incursion and the flood and everything. And then God says in our day, it would be as it was in the days of Noah. And then I myself have had visions about how this, is currently still alive, these hybrid genetics. And, the government is exposing this. And then there's just this big lapse and blank piece of time that I feel like is really kind of like hidden within some of that stuff that we're going to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
I think
so, they hit a lot.
Anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, that'll be fun to get into when we go into that. So everybody join us again, and thanks for
sticking with us.
Again.
Yes.
Yep. All right.
And have a good one.